Peace, family, and welcome to this edition of the Drapetomaniac Podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is, the head Drapetomaniac in charge. And we're here to have conversations on how to get off this plantation. I admit it bothers me to hear our people discussing politics. I myself listen to a lot of talking head political pundits as well as shows, typically outside the mainstream media, but also on mainstream media platforms. Back in the day, I seldom missed the...
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure that you listeners are listening to the Drapetomaniac Podcast on doayamedia.com. You are, right?
The McLaughlin Group on PBS, and I dine on a steady stream of Frontline, Meet the Press, Face the Nation, the National Black Omnibus, and Tony Brown's Journal. Back when I was thoroughly asleep, I listened to the likes of Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Michael Reagan, and so on. In other words, I have always been a hound for political discourse, both from the right and the left, though I classified myself at that time as a conservative. That was back in the day when I was what I call now a true believer. I believed that the system worked and that there were guiding principles behind it. Now, I see that unequivocally, without any question, this entire system is BS, and that what it hands people is a bill of goods. I'm still a person who listens to a lot of political discussions, but for me, now, it's the same as watching any fictional movie like Spider-Man or Superman. I watch or listen for pure entertainment value, but I in no way believe that any of it is actually real or substantive. On other podcasts, I've presented the study that shows that the quote-unquote will of the people has little to no bearing on what elected officials do. It's an article based on a study by Martin Gillens and Benjamin I. Page titled Testing Theories of American Politics, Elites, Interest Groups, and Average Citizens. They sought to ascertain what effect, if any, did the vote of average people or the voices of average people have upon policy decisions made by elected officials in the United States. And unsurprisingly, at least to me, they found and concluded that, quote, by directly pitting the predictions of ideal type theories against each other within a single statistical model, using a unique data set that includes imperfect but useful measurements of the key independent variables for nearly 2,000 policy issues, we have been able to produce some striking findings. One is the nearly total failure of median voters and other majoritarian electoral democracy theories. When the preferences of economic elites and the stands of organized interest groups are controlled for, the preference of the average American appears to have only a minuscule, near zero, effect. I added effect. Close quote. We march, we protest, we vote, we threaten to withhold our vote, and so on, which would be fine if we weren't dealing with a system that is completely corrupt, with politicians who are all, and when I say all, I don't mean that hyperbolically, I mean all are corrupt, some just having varying degrees of corruption. They are all corrupt. There is no political remedy when dealing with a system that is completely ruled by banks, corporations, and money. The things I just mentioned, voting and such, are ideas put forth in a perfect world scenario to address a problem that exists within an imperfect system. Sure, votes should matter. The voice of the people should matter, especially when it comes to the majority of voices. But in a perfect world, people should be able to sleep with their doors unlocked or wide open if they choose. They should be able to leave their house, again, with the door wide open, and when they get home, be able to expect that no one has entered in, let alone stolen anything. In a perfect world, systems would not be in place that are meant to and designed to oppress and terrorize our people. In a perfect world, police protect and serve instead of using our people for target practice or the focus of their aggression. In a perfect world, one would go to school in order to be educated, not indoctrinated. But this is not a perfect world, and none of those things is the reality of our existence. I mentioned to my wife the other day how sorry I feel for our people, especially in this country. The system has now seized up, and the politicians and leadership are so bought and paid for that even for the white people upon whom they have bestowed privilege historically, they are no longer even taken into account. Now, I'm not overly sympathetic to their plight because it's my belief that it's their fault that they and the rest of us are presently in this condition and under a government that is at the head of a failed state. Because at any time, they could have steered this government to do the right thing, but they, and I'm talking about white people, stood by as all of their systems were being put in place. Because at first, it was only our people who were being crushed under the weight of it. As long as they thought it was only black us who were, are, and continue to be hobbled, oppressed, and terrorized under this system, they were content to let it continue to be constructed and perpetuated. Little did they know that the trap was being set for them also. Even as they watched in lackadaisical silence as our people were being treated worse than animals, and in many cases they cheered as we suffered under the tyranny. Now the trap has been sprung, and they see that this government has no more regard for them than they do for a housefly. And they're now turning to our people and crying out, we must join hands together and work against this common enemy. To which I say, nah, I think we'll sit this one out. Because as sure as you hear my voice, if there were some kind of united revolution and the government were somehow forced to actually pay attention to the people, as soon as the smoke cleared and settled, all of us would be ready to raise our hands in victory saying, we won. The same white people who begged us to fight side by side and who called us comrade through the entire revolution would then say to us, we? What do you mean we? Like I said, nah, no thank you. I think I'll sit this one out. But my bigger point, I hear from various voices from all sides of our community talking about the condition of our people and what needs to be done about it, which in most cases is good. We need to discuss these things, but the problem I have is that 90% of what I hear involves some kind of government solution. We discuss and debate forcing those in positions of power to hear our demands and to take them seriously. We demand that they come up with a black agenda, quote unquote. If they don't, then they won't get our vote. But answer me this. Using the adage, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Who is your friend? Democrats? Republicans? Progressives? Who is your ally? Now we get to the meat of it. We have no ally. We live in a racist country that was founded on racism and is perpetuated by it. So what enemy joins what enemy as a friend? The Democrats and the Republicans are enemies, supposedly, as well as those two groups and the progressives. So to whom do we align? No one. You know why? Because they have already aligned against us. It is no accident that during political debates or discussions, the subject of reparations almost never comes up by any party. And when it does, it's in the context of quote-unquote people of color. It is because the enemy of Republicans is black us. The enemy of Democrats is black us. The enemy of other parties is black us. And they are therefore friends in their common enmity against our people. And where does that leave us? We can scream at Republicans, then you don't have our votes. Or we can scream the same thing To Democrats, you don't have our votes. And third parties, same thing. And you know what they think of that? Little or nothing. We, at that point, have nowhere to turn, and by extension, we're nullified and made non-entities by those in positions of power. The only power we have is to separate from this system. There is no other way to have any kind of power without being self-determined. If we are dependent upon this system to do right by us in any way, then we're setting ourselves up to be marginalized. A plutocracy is a society that is ruled or controlled by people of great wealth or income. An oligarch is a very rich business leader with a great deal of political influence. A failed state is a political body that has disintegrated to a point where basic conditions and responsibilities of a sovereign government no longer function properly. A state can also fail if the government loses its legitimacy, even if it's performing its functions properly. Anyone who does not recognize that that is the system in which we presently live is either not comprehending the problem or trying hard not to. This is a plutocracy ruled by oligarchs, and we live in a failed state. In Chris Hedges' book, America, the Farewell Tour, he explains, as he does in his lectures, that the system of government in this country has seized up to the point that there is no political remedy for the situation which is upon the people living here. He further expounds that there is no amount of voting or other traditional political mechanisms that can address these issues. Okay, Ayapo, you know so much. If our votes don't matter, then why all the campaigning? Why even bother to tamper with or suppress votes? The answer is actually pretty simple. As with any and all things based in this corrupt pigsty of a system, follow the dirty, filthy money. Kantar Media, CMAG Group, estimates that the political ads for the 2020 elections could reach $6 billion. Group M, a prominent ad agency, estimates spending for political ads will reach $10 billion, an increase of 59% from the 2016 election year, which had an estimated $6.3 billion that was spent. BIA Advisory Service estimates $6.55 billion will be spent on local political advertising in 2020, with over-the-air TV receiving the largest share of $3.08 billion, 47% of total political spending in 2020. This represents a potential 16.5% of total local broadcast TV advertising revenue for 2020. Digital media is forecasting for 21% of political ads, cable TV 14%, and radio nearly 5%. Cross Screens Media and Advertising Analytics estimates the video ad market for politics will grow by 50% from 2018 to 2020, reaching a projected $6 billion. The study estimates political advertising will account for 4 to 5% of the total video ad dollars and account for 17% of total growth. Local broadcast TV is expected to get a lion's share of the political ad dollars, with stronger ad growth from digital media and local cable. Get my drift? Election cycles are big business and big money. Just like any other holiday, and especially the Christmas holidays, just like holidays are retail's Black Friday or profit boosters, the election cycle is media's Black Friday and profit boosters. They make money during these cycles, as well as talking heads and other pundits who make money. Some people launched their careers during various election cycles and have become well-known and well-paid political analysts. Okay, Ayapo, I'll grant you that. But what does that have to do with voter suppression and all the games they keep playing with the cheating and all that's going on? To answer that, I'll borrow a quote from the movie The Matrix, where Agent Smith is talking to Morpheus about the original Matrix. He said, quote, "Did you know that the first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world where none suffered, where everyone would be happy? It was a disaster. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. Some believe that we lack the programming language to describe your perfect world. But I believe that as a species, human beings define their reality through misery and suffering." Close quote. Were elections to run too smoothly and go off without a hitch, people would become suspicious very quickly and see very clearly that the system is obviously rigged. But as long as it looks like we're fighting against the machine, that gives us the belief that we're actually fighting against something, when all the while we're basically just doing busy work that makes us feel like we're doing something. And why do they, the government and those in positions of power, care that we participate? Again, money. Hey, those political ads on television and on the internet aren't free, as you just heard. Nor are the signs on the lawns and cluttering up the streets and assaulting our eyes on billboards. This system needs our energy. It doesn't matter if that energy is positive or negative. It just needs the energy. And even with that, while those at the top do their dirt, just listen to us people at the bottom interacting with each other. There's this name calling and threats, and in some cases actual physical violence happening, as we who have no power on this level are fighting and arguing among ourselves about getting our people into office. And as we fight, those at the top are enacting policies that are destroying our lives as they continue to push trillions of dollars to the top, to the oligarchs who own them. And who are we fighting? Friends, family, neighbors, both in the same line at the same Dollar Tree, trying to stretch a buck, and we're arguing and fighting with them. While those who are causing us to have to shop at the Dollar Tree or stand in food lines are eating at 5-star restaurants and charging it to the taxpayer. In other words, we're paying for it. If you don't feel like you're being played for a chump and a dupe by now, then I don't know what to tell you. For those who do and want to step out of this madness, to borrow a quote from Anjali Shabazz, author of the novel This Black, available on Amazon in both digital and physical formats, heaven is where you defend it. Separating from this system and becoming self-sufficient and self-determined is wherein our power lies and what we must do and defend and fight for. It is a difficult thing to live as a person of honor trapped within a corrupt system. However, my wife and I are determined to do just that. One of the first steps was that we had to recognize just what a cesspool we're in and determine ways to detach ourselves from it little by little. We seek to recognize the things that make this system and this society what it is. As an example, we were discussing the reverence we show for life. On my part, we were just talking today about how I used to smash bugs when I saw them in the house. Speaking of spiders, grasshoppers, and so on. But now when I see a bug, I go out of my way to somehow get it into a glass and take it outdoors and let it out. I openly admit that I have yet to develop that kind of generosity when it comes to flies and gnats. But who knows? Perhaps one day I will. My point being that with our actions, we're making choices to do what we want to do, how we want to shape our lives, and not be guided or influenced by what the wider society might tell us is right or wrong. We are defining what success and happiness looks like to us, not what we're told it looks like by people who hate us and seek to control us, using us and telling us through their media and through advertising. We are coming to conclusions about who and what our people are, and that we are not the worst and the lowest people on the planet, according to what our enemies say. Why would I listen to anything they have to say when they're against me? So I reject any and all of their propaganda. The power to separate from this system, even little by little, is in our hands. And with that, we'll be able to find our way to a life of safety, security, and sanity through separation. And so can you. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Drapetomaniac Podcast. This is Ayapo Yapa, the HDIC, that is, the head Drapetomaniac in charge. Wishing you peace and blessings, safety and sanity, until next week at this same time. And until then, I'll see you on the run.
And thank you again for listening to the Drapetomaniac Podcast. Tune in next week at doiamedia.com. DOEAIAMEDIA.com. And again, we'll catch you on the run. Peace.